Hey everyone, welcome back to another recipe. This week I'm making a pie in the slow cooker. It is the fall season, so we're definitely going to be hitting those pies a ton. And I made a vegan cheesecake in the slow cooker the other day. I didn't film it, but it was spectacular. So I'm going to give pie a shot. It's going to be a mixed berry pie, predominantly cherry. You can use blueberries, cherries, raspberries, a combination of your favorite berries, and I'm using frozen. As always on this channel, I'm trying to make the recipes a little bit healthier, so I'm using healthier ingredients, date sugar or better sugars that have a lower glycemic index, such as coconut sugar rather than granulated sugar, but they can all be made with granulated sugar if you choose, or just have these ingredients on hand. We'll be making the crust, the filling, and the crumble topping. This will be a crumble topping pie because I recently saw one at the store and it looked delicious, so I'm going to make it here at home. I know you're really going to enjoy this one, so let's get to the recipe. So this first section is going to be the crust, and I've separated my dry ingredients from my wet ingredients. You can make this with vegan butter or alternative, but I'm going to explain the ingredients that I'm using because there's kind of a lot, but I'm making this healthier, so it's going to be different. I'm using whole wheat flour and all-purpose flour because I want the nutrition from the whole wheat flour, but also the fluffiness of the all-purpose flour. I'm also using homemade almond flour. I make my almond flour from the pulp from the almond cow. I make my own non-dairy milk at home. I will leave the product tagged in the description if you're interested in it. I like to make homemade lattes, homemade matcha lattes, and I use this every single week, probably several times a week. So I dehydrate the almonds and make my own almond flour. I'm also using a little bit of arrowroot powder to help everything bind just a little bit more. Instead of granulated sugar, I'm using date sugar. You can use whole dates. The difference is that whole dates have a lot more moisture than date sugar. Date sugar is completely dehydrated dates ground up into a powder, and we're using a little bit of salt. Any other additional ingredients will all be listed in the description as always. And to replace the high fat quantity in crust and pastry, I'm using a combination of almond butter and olive oil. There's a lot of no oil talk, so I try to use a smaller quantity of olive oil in my pastry and in my baking, and I choose to opt for a larger quantity of nut butter because it has more fiber, more nutrients. It's still a lot of calories, but it doesn't really matter. We're making a dessert here, so I'm going to use this instead of vegan butter, but you can choose to use vegan butter if you choose. And we're going to whack it all in the food processor to make our life easier. Everything for the crust can be made in the food processor in 10 to 15 minutes. Add all of your flour in addition to all of your wet ingredients that I just previously explained to your food processor with the sharp edged insert, the S blade as it's called. You don't want the dough blade, which is a softer sort of silicone embraced blade and insert, because it doesn't always blend everything to the accuracy you want. So I like to use the S blade. Instead of water, I actually like to use bananas to congeal everything. I do this because it adds natural sweetness to the crust, and also I always have lingering very brown bananas on my countertop or in my refrigerator. So once your nut butters, flours, and bananas have been added to your food processor, it should come together without you having to do anything else. You will know when it's ready when it starts to cling off of the side of the food processor. This is the texture I want perfectly. It's like the perfect texture. Stuck together, one mass, clinging off of the sides of the blender, and you just need like real ingredients to do it. Once your dough is ready to go, all you want to do is take it out of your blender and then very carefully take it off of the S blade. Combine just very lightly with a little knead of the hands, and I like to put it between two circular sheets of parchment paper, ideally compostable parchment paper, because we reduce waste this way, and you can just pop it in the composter and it will biodegrade naturally and it won't live in the trash. Put it in the fridge and set it aside. Okay, now in the same container of the blender that we made our crust, we're gonna make the crumble topping. The crumble topping is made of oats, sugar and salt, and cinnamon. You can use your favorite spices. Cardamom also works really nicely here. And for our fats, rather than vegan butter, I'm using almond pulp. You can also use almond flour. I'm using almond pulp because I recently made a recipe with the almond cow. Cashew butter, and just a little bit of coconut oil or coconut manna to help crisp the topping when baking. And once again, all you do is chuck this into the high-speed blender and you have your crumble topping. For your crumble topping, similarly, all you need to do is dump your ingredients into your food processor using the S-blade and combine until it is a dough with little portions the size of a pea. You don't want it to be too crumbled up where it then starts to form a dough of its own. You don't want this. You want it to be still intact, some whole oats, but not a dough where everything is just completely eviscerated and it looks like mush. Set in the fridge and set aside. Our last step in terms of making part of the pie is the filling. I'm using 5.5 cups of berries. I'm using approximately 4 cups of sweet cherries and 1.5 cups of blackberries. So they're pretty tart. I changed my mind. I wanted to add something different than cherries. And for our sweetening ingredients, flavoring ingredients, I'm using a cup of coconut sugar. I'm also using date sugar to congeal everything. I'm using cornstarch. You can also use arrowroot powder, cinnamon for flavoring. So we're gonna toss that right in. And then our wet ingredients, because you do need a little bit of wet ingredients. I love almond extract and cherry pie. I think it tastes so nice, and lemon juice for tartness. All you gotta do is mix everything up and then assemble your pie in the slow cooker. The filling is the easiest part of this recipe to make. You just grab your berries, your lemon juice, your almond extract, and all of your sweeteners and thickeners and combine it in a medium to large mixing bowl with a spatula. Once everything is combined, the mixture will have a light brown color. Once that section is ready, we will start to assemble our pie. With a rolling pin, roll out your dough to the size of your slow cooker insert. That is the base that cooks things in your slow cooker. You want to roll it out to fit those dimensions. I like to line my slow cooker insert with composable parchment paper. I gently lie my dough onto the parchment paper and move it into the crock pot. I then form a little crimp on the outside edges of the dough to ensure that it looks just a little prettier than if it was regular. And then I gently add all of my cherries and berry filling to the pie. Be careful when you do this because sometimes these berries, because it's not a conventional pie pan, will try to fall on the edges of your crock pot. Just be mindful of this. Top with your crumble topping that you made in your slow cooker and cook on high for 2.5 to 3 hours. I recommend 2.5 hours for this because 3 hours will slightly overcook it. I cooked it for 245 and it was a little bit too much. I like to set it overnight to ensure that everything sticks together perfectly and it's a delicious pie that you can enjoy with ice cream or whenever you want a slice to go. As always, everyone, thank you so much for your viewership. It means the world to me. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like, comment on this video, and let me know what kinds of other recipes you're in the mood for. This is the perfect recipe for the winter holidays that are right around the corner, and I hope you join me next Friday for another full recipe. See you next time.